Yeah.
Right? We're not setting her,
Unless she wants to.
unless you want to take the end seat.
What?
You can either take the end seat or you can sit.
That's the thing.
So you got the hot seat now. I'm just kidding. She's the one. No, I.
I'm auditioning sounds. All right, that'll work. Good evening, all. This is the April 9th Board of Directors meeting for the Fallbrook Regional Health District. And we will call for a roll call.
Director Jeffrey,
Here.
Director Canseco.
Here.
Director Leach.
Here.
Director DeVito.
Here.
Director Salmon.
Here.
Thank you. We have quorum.
Okay. Now we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can you just go to the agenda then? May I have a motion to approve the agenda? Second. Thank you.
Director Salmon.
Aye.
Director DeVito.
Aye.
Director Leach.
Aye.
Director Canseco.
Aye.
Director Jeffrey.
Aye, thank you. All right, do we have any public comments? We have a lot of public. Do we have any public?
We don't have the blue cards over here, so if anyone does have a public comment, I would say raise your hand and we'll go through any
Accommodate.
public comments. If any, we didn't receive anything via email and no one online is indicating they have a comment.
Okay, thank you very much. Here are consent items. I have a motion to approve consent items. Someone?
Second.
Director Jeffrey.
Aye.
Director Canseco.
Aye.
Director Leach.
Aye.
Director DeVito. Director Salmon.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, and now for the main event for tonight. Our annual grant funding. Welcome to all of you with an interest in this. It's so good to see you. I want to give some contextual comments before we move on. The task we have tonight is selecting the grants that will be funded. Our second task, goodly colleagues, will be determine funding level. So we have two things we have to do, but this is not done in the context of just the grants. We perform a lot of community services. For instance, at the $100,000 a year for the ambulance for North County Fire. We fund 200,000, thank you. We fund Michelle's Place Cancer Support here. We fund Palomar Counseling Services here. They are not a grant based, but they are allocated money that goes for grant-like services. So I want everybody to understand there's a larger picture here. And we've had a great time looking at all your inspirational conversations and narratives. So with that, are we going to place anything on the screen or is this? Okay, why don't we go ahead and give and can we get rid of that thing? No, we can't because we're zooming, right?
Right.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
And of course you can hardly. What you see here, folks, is a tabulation of the scores that individual board members gave, and then the average score for a given grant. Those in green received very high scores. Those in yellow received credible scores. Those in the red did not meet the standard for funding. So our job is to review and discuss to the degree we need to the items in green and yellow to help us decide which grants will be funded, and then we'll move into a funding conversation. I was very pleased to see, as I'm sure my board colleagues were, that in the 4 categories: youth programming, community health and fitness, older adult programming, and support services for special populations, that grants in the green and the yellow all showed up in every single one of them. So we have a breadth of coverage that we're doing, which means we have a breadth of demographic that we're serving. I will now call for board member comments on the methodology. If any board member has a concern about the green and the yellow applications being funded, not the level of funding, but do these comport with how you see the best coverage of the grants? And I'll entertain any comments or clapping.
I would just say, I appreciate your comments. I definitely agree with, kind of the context that you provided there with a lot of the different services that we're providing that kind of takes the place of that, element of funding that we used to, I guess, cover. I think that there was a lot of really good grants. Definitely have to say, there's definitely a lot of really good programs that, that are in the book. So, really excited to see what we can do here. I pretty much agree with your assessment that the green and the yellow are probably the first place to start. And then just one other note is just the final grant number 12. Just wasn't able to be considered because not
Incomplete.
fully paid, not all the paperwork requirements done. So, just something to keep in mind, for anybody that did get funded, you know, or for the future. Definitely super important to have everything filled out, like all the requirements done, because, this particular grant, the scores on some of them were somewhat high and might have made it into one of those categories if they would have filled out all the paperwork. So definitely really important. So.
Thank you, Bill, for coaching. That's a good coaching tip. Make sure you're complete.
Jennifer,
Yes, sir.
my understanding is that for those who aren't funded, that our CEO will sit down with the representatives and talk about how they could be improved for next year. Is that correct?
Right, so typically each year, whether you were funded or not, I'll sit down with any grantee to talk over how your application could have been stronger, any particular feedback about anything on the grant. So whether you're funded or not, I'm happy to sit down and kind of walk through the grant process with you. So your application could be stronger or a better fit, or if it doesn't align, why you need to potentially not consider applying again.
Thank you. Would any board member like to entertain conversation around grants that are not in the green and the yellow? Any comments on a grant in the green or the yellow, critiquing it or feeling that perhaps it didn't rise to the occasion? Looking for nods and, okay. All right. Okay, I'm gonna take this in two parts and call for a motion to approve the grants separate from funding level.
Okay, so we'll approve, for the record, you're making the motion that the grants that are listed in green and yellow are approved to be awarded with a follow-up discussion regarding funding amount to follow.
Correct. May I have a second?
Second.
Director Jeffries.
Aye.
Director Canseco. Aye. Director Leach.
Aye.
Director DeVito. Aye. Director Salmon.
Aye.
Thank you. So now to decide funding level. The other point of interest on our strategic planning line, my colleagues, is funding further clinical services in Fallbrook and Bonsall and Duluth and Vallecitos. So we've got to be careful that we keep some of our money dry so that when those opportunities come, we have it. Right now, our executive director, and I concur with her, is recommending funding up to $400,000 of these grants. If you look, we're $33,000 over for fully funding green and yellow. So we need to think about how best to meet that goal. I have a thought I'd like to share. Fallbrook Food Pantry and the Senior Service, Nutrition Program. I think you might have noticed in their, grant that federal and local funding is dwindling. With the exception of the two nutrition programs, which are basic necessities for people and may even grow more. I am suggesting that we consider funding the remaining green and yellow grants at a 10% reduction of what is requested. If we reduced each grant by 10%, we would gain about $28,000. We would only be $5,000 over the 400,000 as our target. And it would be mutual. We'd all be helping each other to get funded at a decent level.
Sounds fair to me.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Is that a motion?
I'm looking for my colleague. Sally, how do you feel about that approach?
I think that's a good approach. My only, thought is that enough, hunger and nutrition being the bottom of the pyramid,
Right.
as far as our needs. Do we need to consider going even above what was requested?
I was thinking about that and I had an additional thought on that. If things get really dire and we see those two programs overwhelmed, there's nothing that we can't go back in and due to a local emergency, reconsider. This is a very generous community. We saw that in COVID. If we really hit the skids on numbers of people needing nutritional support and amounts, let's let that play out and then we can always loop back. Does that make sense? Okay. How do you feel
But
about?
to your original idea, I think that is reasonable and it doesn't hit anybody very hard and it allows us to fully fund those at a minimum.
I do like the idea. I'm just trying to think of the 10% from the bottom, the orange one. And I understand the basic needs of food, especially those that cannot drive, don't have ability to be, well, I know there are other services outside of Fallbrook, but if they can't access it, then it's, they're not gonna be able to get the food that they need. So I kind of like the idea, but what about changing the 10% to a different number, to 8%?
Well, then we're eating into the money we have for future thinking about clinical services and any emergencies. So it's certainly, it's a viable idea to move it to 8% rather than 10%. We'd probably be about, if my math is right, maybe $7,000 short of the goal.
So 10% will give us an extra cushion.
10% brings us within $5,000 of the goal of $400,000 being spent.
Just a thought, the money is dispersed quarterly, correctly? While it's sitting in the bank, I mean, it's making 5%, so I mean, if it sits there, I mean, it'd probably make close to that,
Good point. Are you suggesting no reduction?
and it's, I would defer to finance, but I mean, generally, like the 30,000 is kind of a trivial amount. I mean, I'm not sure how much, it would affect the ability for the grant holders themselves to run those programs. I mean, I would hate to see, any sort of reduction in services or, quality of services. And then I do agree with what you mentioned, that we do have the ability to do more later or, look at that at a later point. I'm sure the board will look at that if there was some sort of need. So, that'd be my thought.
Mhm.
Bill, as I look at the green and yellow again, proportionately. I don't think any one of those agencies depends solely on our grants. And so I continue to support the 10%.
So we have three ideas on the table. Fully fund, an 8% reduction and a 10% reduction. Is there,
So I'll move on the 10%.
okay. Howard made a motion. Is there a second? 10% reduction? Is there a second? I'll second it, just to get the lay of the land. Okay. So roll call on reducing the green and yellow by 10% to meet more closely our $400,000 with funding,
With the exception of the two.
with the exception of the two nutrition programs. Thank you.
Director Salmon,
Aye.
Director DeVito. Aye. Director Leach,
No.
Director Canseco,
No.
Director Jeffrey.
Aye.
Motion carries.
No hard feelings? Okay. All right. All right. So we've done a multi-layered conversation here, and we congratulate those who received. And we look forward to working with you and continuing with you. And for those who weren't funded, Rachel will meet with you and help you understand for next year how you might be able to move on up.
And then if I can add on to this, each year, once you're awarded, you know, that we put together the grant contract. Once we have some time back at the office, we'll adjust the numbers to reflect this motion. So we'll send that out to those who are affected to what your new grant award amount will be. So that as we're putting together the grant contract, if you don't feel that you can meet the application goals, it'll have to be during this discussion before we give the grant contract to you. Does that make sense? For those of you who've gotten the contract, you know what that means. If not, I can explain it to you later.
All right, that completes this particular item. And we're on to. Okay. Do board members have any comments or requests on item for a subsequent meeting?
I'll just, obviously it's my last meeting, so I just wanted to thank, all the staff, the board members, all the nonprofits in town. It's been a pleasure to serve on the board. I think, it's, been, really amazing kind of watching the district go, in the, 7 years I've been on the board, from like 3 staff members and not really doing a whole lot in town to, you know, having the programming that we have here and the staff, the ownership that they take and the programming here. And just seeing the continual development of the staff and the programs, it's just been amazing. So really appreciate it. I'm sure that the board is in good hands and staff, like I said, is amazing. I'm sure that they'll continue to do great things. So thanks everyone, and I really appreciate the time that I spent on the board.
And Bill, we want to thank you for your leadership and your patience and your involvement and a little wonderful.
I have a nice cushioned box for you.
Thank you, Bill.
Second and the board, we have a photographer. in this.
Okay.
You can stay seated.
We'll hover over you.
Yeah, I'm hovering behind you.
Oh,
Just me
that's
and my freezing hand.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill, for your kind words. We will continue to make you proud.
Awesome.
Okay. Any other board member comments? I just want to thank our 2 newest board members too, really rising to the occasion on this process that we use, and appreciate your diligence on that.
They were warned this was the biggest, hardest
This is
list.
what you're gonna have to do at some point.
Great.
Okay. Here are our announcements of upcoming events and come and join us if you would like to. And on that note, is there anything?
Oh, we do, in honor of Bill's service, we won't say you're going away. We don't really want to celebrate that part. In honor of your service, we do have some light refreshments that we'll bring out. So we invite everyone to stay for a few moments afterwards. And then board, I also have one small task of signing that I need from each of you.
Very good. Thank you again for everyone coming, and I'm going to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
So.